Welcome to Corrective Consciousness, episode 253, the podcast where we explore the inanity of pop culture. I'm your host, vysethebold, and this is...
Lotus Prince.
And we have another wonderful theme here. We thought it would be a pretty interesting look at the Marvel brand outside of comics before there was an MCU, because it's hard to believe a time before that, because it is such an omnipresent thing in media, in general. It's huge in TV shows and huge in movies, and they're like the biggest top grossing films of all time. And so the Marvel universe is extremely popular. But there was Marvel had in particular had a pretty poor trial before it got to the X-Men movie.
It was very, very hit and miss. The thing that I find interesting about pre-MCU movies, it makes me think of Stephen King movies.
Yeah.
And yeah, now that we've...
Most of them were TV movies and garbage. Before that.
I don't even mean it like that, although that's definitely true. Stephen King either had some of the best movies of all time or trash.
TV
garbage. But the thing with Stephen King, though, is that all of his books, in one way or another, share a kind of continuity, but the people making the movies didn't know that because that information had not yet been disclosed. So just as was the case with the pre-MCU Marvel movies, I mean, even the MCU Marvel movies have different directors who have different attitudes about their movies. Thor Ragnarok is kind of a comedy, but there's still a cohesiveness and continuity among all the movies. But meanwhile, with Marvel, there's Blade, there's X-Men. They might have sequels in and of themselves, but there's no hint that Blade exists in the same universe that Spider-Man exists in, that Ghost Rider exists in. It's just
they're separate things.
I want to make a Ghost Rider movie, so I'm going to do that. So it's very each movie or each franchise or whatever is very isolated.
Yeah, so I think we should start from the beginning here and just give you a kind of the outlook on things. So before Marvel was Marvel, they were Timely Comics, and this is where Captain America comes from. The big three with Timely Comics. Do you know the other two?
No, I actually have no idea about this.
The other two big Golden Age Timely Comics superheroes, other than Captain Marvel, were the original Human Torch, the non-Fantastic Four Human Torch.
Wait, hold on. I think you said Captain America at first, but now you're saying Captain Marvel.
Oh, I meant Captain America. I'm sorry.
Okay, so Captain America, Human Torch, okay.
Captain America, we're talking about Steve Rogers and Bucky fighting Hitler. That kind of stuff, back in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, I was going to say, as famous as that cover is, I don't think they ever actually interacted with Hitler.
Well, they punch him on that cover, and that's it.
Well, yeah, on the cover. That was more thematic than what was actually in the story.
Sure.
It was the Red Skull, who was totally not Hitler, I promise.
and the Human Torch, before the Fantastic Four Human Torch, he was an android that could basically be on fire.
It was Chris Evans' Human Torch before Chris Evans decided, no, I think I would do better as Captain America.
No. But it's just kind of funny. So 1941 is basically the birth, or the first Timely comic, I think, was just called Marvel Comics.
Well, hold on. Who's the third hero?
And the third hero, you'll get they retroactively added him as a mutant in later
Leonardo.
comics. No, just think of an old school weird superhero that you never think of, but you're like, oh wow.
This is tough because both Marvel and DC have an endless character roster.
No, but you'll be like, oh wow, when I say it, you know
probably.
Namor the Submariner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's basically Marvel or Timely Comics version of
Aquaman.
Aquaman. I think Namor was first, actually. But they retroactively count him as part of like the X-Men. He's a mutant.
So that's interesting because like Aquaman is like king of Atlantis. Namor is just some guy who happens to have water powers.
Yeah, he's king of Atlantis too.
Oh,
Yeah. But he is an X-Men villain. They bring him in later on as an X-Men villain. That's how they reintroduce him into the Marvel universe.
you know what that reminds me of is that like Wolverine was a one-off Hulk villain at first. Like,
yeah,
oh,
exactly.
who's this mysterious fighter? And then he's like one of the most famous X-Men.
Yeah, and he's also like has no personality or anything, of course, when he first shows up. So
well, yeah, he's a one-off villain. I mean, even Batman's villain, the Joker, he's the funny villain, and then he dies in his first appearance. He's dead. Yeah. That's it. He's dead.
He straight up shoots people in that first comic.
Yeah,
just like straight up goes around shooting people.
Well, we're done with the Joker anyway, so now to more of the series. And everyone's like, "Wait, the Joker was awesome. Bring him back." Like, oh, okay, and now he's Batman's #1 villain.
So these comics were in the early 40s, so they were used as part of the war effort, and the kind of like the hype the men up at home.
Captain America was part of the war effort.
Of course he was, but
punching Hitler on the cover of issue #1. Really?
But Namor fought the Nazis. Namor and the Human Torch fought the Nazis. But yeah,
even the Joker thinks that the Red Skull's a piece of shit. You ever see that famous comic panel?
He's like, at least I'm not a Nazi.
Yeah, it's like I may be I may be like a crazy criminal or whatever, but I'm an American crazy criminal or something like that.
Yeah, I mean they even have a line like that in The Rocketeer where.
I don't work for no 2-bit Nazi.
Yeah.
Like
he's like, I may not
saying that to the FBI agent.
An honest buck, but I ain't some 2-bit Nazi.
Yeah, I'm a criminal, but I'm not that criminal.
Yeah, exactly. So mafia guys are a fan of capitalism, believe it or not. But yeah. But Captain America had his own serial films, just as Batman and Superman did back in the day, before TV was really a prevalent thing. So you would go to the movie theater, and you'd see a whole bunch of things. You wouldn't just see like a movie. You would see like even newsreels. You would see a cartoon. Then you would see a film serial, like a part of a film serial.
Batman had a whole bunch of those back in the day. The black and white.
Batman, Superman, and Captain America had them.
I remember doing some Trivial Pursuit game where it's like, which of these actors has not played Batman? And the really funny thing is, it was a bit of an older Trivial Pursuit, so the correct answer was supposed to be Ben Affleck, who has now actually played Batman. But I remember, like, based on when it was made, I knew that Ben Affleck was supposed to be the answer. Meanwhile, there's an actor whose name I'd never even heard of before, but I know he must have played Batman, because at the time Ben Affleck hadn't. And it turned out he was black and white serial Batman. It was like amazing.
And black and white Batman looks really goofy, even compared to the 60s Batman.
And to be fair, 60s was actively trying to be goofy at all times.
Yeah. So, you had like these, 15-minute serials where Captain America would fight something, and then there would be a cliffhanger. Literally, he might be hanging off of a cliff, and then
that's where the term comes from. Like, how will he get out of this one?
Yeah, exactly. But after that, comics had a really bad dark period after the during the 50s. This is when Timely Comics died, and all that was being produced were like romance and western comics by them.
That. Yeah. Did they ever? This might have been later, but like the horror stuff, like Strange Tales or whatever.
So like the popular stuff during that time period was going to be from EC Comics, like Tales from the Crypt, like those kinds of things. But Marvel did have a horror line, like the Tomb of Dracula, which was what you're referring to.
And that's when you get like when you see weird shit like Wolverine fights the King of the Vampires. Like, Dracula's a Marvel character.
No, Dracula is one of the oldest Marvel characters. Which is actually kind of funny. Yeah,
there's a Marvel version of Dracula.
Yeah, and
it's not Bram Stoker's Dracula; it's Marvel Dracula.
Blade fights one of the OG like supervillains in Marvel history.
Yeah, he did that in Blade Trinity, by far the best movie.
But anyway, So there was like a big dark period. There were no superheroes for Marvel during this time, and then like basically the only person that was still on staff from the 40s was Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Stan Lee and Jack Kirby like made all the good stuff back in the golden age, and then like they were early guys in their 20s at the time, you know, like the early 20s, just like churning out comic after comic after comic, you know, for Human Torch, Submariner, and Captain America. And then they killed off Captain America and Bucky. You know, they threw them into the icy Atlantic, and you don't know what happened to them. And so like everybody thought they were dead, and then like all the comics stopped. So he finally brings them all back. Brings back a comic line under the title Marvel Comics 2, named after, you know, their flagship title at the time, which was called Marvel Comics, which is where Human Torch was from. And he starts it all up with the Fantastic Four #1. So Fantastic Four #1 in the 60s. Which
has a super iconic cover, that giant monster like reaching out of the ground.
The mole monster, yeah.
Yeah.
There's the mole monster, and then Namor shows up, but then Fantastic Four was really, really popular, and then it ushered back in comics, and then like DC in the meantime was kind of having a dark era too, but they at least still had their superheroes going on in the 50s. But they revitalized. They had their Silver Age going on over there, where they have like the new version of the Flash that we all know and love. You have Barry Allen, who not Jay Garrick, you know, the Golden Age Flash. You have Hal Jordan is the second Green Lantern that shows up there, and so you have a revitalization going through in the 60s, and then Marvel like explodes. Stan Lee and Jack Kirby are basically, and other creators like Steve Ditko are all coming up with all brand new stuff. There's Iron Man right around this time period. Thor, Captain America does come back in the Avengers. They have the Avengers.
By the way, one thing to mention, by the way, is Iron Man debuted in The Invincible Iron Man.
Yeah.
But Thor comics came later. Thor showed up in Journey into Mystery.
Journey into Mystery, yeah. Incredible Hulk was right around that time period as well. Was that in Strange Tales? Something like that? Yeah.
That I don't know. I thought the Incredible Hulk was just his own comic.
Maybe you're right. Maybe it's just Incredible Hulk #1. There's the X-Men that show up. Spider-Man shows up in Amazing Fantasy 15. And is it 14 or 15?
I believe it's 15. Because I remember for some reason, I don't know why, but I used to think it was 17. And it's like, oh no, it's the next odd number down, so it's 15.
It's 15. So Amazing Fantasy was another anthology book, you know, where they
this issue we have look at this new kooky character. It's a Spider-Man. How weird is that? And then he really took off.
Yeah. Oh, and there was Ant-Man. There was like a whole bunch of other characters.
I think Spider-Man kind of started the way like One Piece did, like the origin of like Luffy with Shanks getting his arm bitten off. I think that was like a self-contained story that Oda wrote.
Yeah.
And people were like, this is awesome. Like, and so he expanded on it, and now like the One Piece universe is massive and the lore runs surprisingly deep.
Yeah, with great power comes great responsibility was that very first issue. So
yeah, that's an iconic line, of course.
Yeah, so the Spider-Man quickly became like their flagship character and still is. For the most part.
By the way, one thing that always tickled me is, you know, in the Spider-Man movie, the Sam Raimi movie, where he has to dodge Bonesaw because he wasn't like confident with his powers. He's like, oh shit, like I think I could take the guy, but he's like dodging his attacks, and then he like kicks him repeatedly until he KOs him. Like, whew, holy shit, I brought down Randy Savage. But like in the comic, first of all, the costume was shit. Like the movie played on that. He had like a poor excuse for a Spider-Man costume, but in the comic, he was wearing like I think regular clothes and just like a dark mask that obscured his face. But he picks up like he was called Hulk something, wasn't he?
He was Crusher Hogan.
Crusher Hogan. Oh, it was Hogan, not Hulk. That's funny. But yeah, Crusher Hogan is just this big, bare-chested wrestler. And Spider-Man, like, it's a wrestling ring that has, like, really tall corner posts. He just picks the guy up with one fucking arm and starts just climbing the post. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, fuck, I forfeit, just put me down. That's the fight. It's great.
So during this era, the comics get really popular, and people start the Marvel starts thinking about there are other superhero shows going on television around that time. You have like the Bionic Man, you have the Bionic Woman, the the $6 million Man, the Bionic Woman.
Yeah, we can rebuild him.
You have Wonder Woman, which is their DC Comics,
the 70s show.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even Spider-Man, there was a 60s cartoon.
Well, I was going to get to that. So do you know what the first TV show like Marvel thing was?
Well, okay, I don't know if this counts as Marvel, but the Japanese Spider-Man with the mech?
You are correct.
All right. I was wondering if that was just like Spider-Man wink. I don't know. I didn't know if that was officially licensed or what.
So, okay.
Which people like jokingly call like Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's the Japanese
so
pronunciation.
There's the Toei Spider-Man, which is what you're referring to, which is a licensed Japanese Spider-Man like tokusatsu show. Is that what it's called? Tokusatsu?
I think so. It's funny because it makes me think of the Big O, which is basically Batman if he had a mech, but it's not actually called Batman. Like, this is actually called Spider-Man.
But yeah, but actually there's something right before that. I should say this is the second thing.
For Marvel?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
This should be pretty obvious. Once I tell you, you're gonna be like, okay, yeah.
Well, again, the '60s cartoon Spider-Man. That was that
no, it's not '60s. It's '70s.
Still
this
70s?
is all '70s stuff. Yeah, there's nothing in the '60s.
Then what was that Spider-Man show? Was it the '80s then?
No, that
cartoon,
you mean the animated one?
Yeah.
The animated one's from the '80s. Yeah.
No kidding. All right. Could this be the Fantastic Four cartoon?
No, this is not animated. This is a live action.
With that super funny Magneto, like, I do not need to obey a mere sign, and he bends it. Behold my power! It's like the most petty thing.
It's so
like
bad.
It's like an unironic Doctor Doom. Oh, wait a minute. Is this the... Again, I'm reaching. Is this the technically unofficial, but we can watch it anyway, Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie?
No, that's 90s.
Oh, that's much later than I thought.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, I don't know this one then.
You're gonna kick yourself for not.
I might.
The Incredible Hulk. David Banner.
Oh, Lou Ferrigno?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so of course they changed his name to...
a bear into space and makes Ursa Major out of him.
No, that's Hercules. That's Hercules.
Oh, fuck, you're right.
Yeah,
okay.
No, that's the canon
also
Hercules movie.
Do you remember that time Lou Ferrigno showed up in the Ed Norton Incredible Hulk?
Yeah, he's like a security
guard, and Ed Norton gives him some pizza. He's like, "Hey, you're all right."
But there's a lot of so this was a huge, very popular TV show. Believe it or not. So the Lou Ferrigno one, and it seems like probably the easiest one out of all the superheroes at the time to probably make it to a show, because
that was the one with the sad Hulk theme.
Dun, 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 dun. So what they do is they just have like a normal guy, and then like he turns into like a gigantic
Lou
muscle
Ferrigno
man.
was painted green.
Yeah, exactly. So but like this is probably like it's cheesy nowadays, but people really liked it, and it was like a drama show, so like it had a lot going on.
Well, it kind of cracks me up because like he doesn't look like the Hulk. It's literally like, oh, that's Lou Ferrigno. Except they painted him green. Like, it's just Lou Ferrigno. It just cracks me up. It's the same thing with Hercules in New York with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, at the time he was a no-name, but like today we'd be like, that's just Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. But like at the time, like bodybuilding wasn't like a big deal in the 70s, so like having a guy that size was actually like really unusual.
Yeah, where do you find a guy this fucking huge?
Yeah, exactly. So there's probably more animated stuff as well that I'm missing, but like this is the first like real like live action thing from Marvel, like after those serials. And then And then, of course, there was Spider-Man, the
Yeah,
Japanese Spider-Man,
yeah.
and then they had an American one as well.
Yeah, and that's where the Sam Raimi movies even brought this back by winking at it. That theme song, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can.
And there were other spin-off things. There was the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, and that had like Thor in it. Like they had a Doctor Strange television movie that was like kind of like in the
Yeah,
same
how did
universe.
like I'm just trying to even imagine that because like I'm trying to imagine how you could possibly do that without CG. Like, I guess
Yeah.
you could have him fight enemies, but like, there's no way you're going into psychedelic realm. Like,
Yeah.
you're just not doing that on a TV show, 70s TV show budget. Because the whole thing with Doctor Strange is like, look at this insane imagery. And to be fair, I know the 60s and 70s were all into the psychedelic imagery. That's what like inspired that look in Doctor Strange in the first place. But like, how do you do that live action? How like you don't, I guess. It's
Yeah,
just a guy
well,
in a big
that's
goofy
how
Halloween
bad it
cape.
was. Like, it wasn't like a.
Yeah, it's just a guy in a big Halloween cape. Like it makes me think of that one YouTube video where I think it might have been like a Korean guy or something who was just like dressed as Doctor Strange, and he would go to like at the grocery store.
Oh yeah, I
when you
remember that.
Yeah, you step on the mats to open the door, and he would make the motion with his hands like, "Behold, the
was
door opens." It's
amazing.
like I'm imagining the '70s TV show was like an unironic version of that. Like, behold my powers! Like a small object floats on a string or whatever.
So funny. But yeah, there after that, there was like a pretty big lull because like you had the Spider-Man stuff, and that kind of stuff died out. And then like there was a really bad Captain America like TV movie.
Oh, was that the?
That's not the Roger Corman one, I don't think.
Well, there were like, I remember Red Letter Media talking about this. 'Cause I know there was a Red Brown Captain America movie, but there was a different one with like J.D. Salinger's kid as Captain America.
J.D. Salinger's kid was
I
Captain
think
America.
I think it might have been. Yeah.
Oh
Like,
wow.
I'm gonna Google that now, but like yeah, 1990. I googled Captain America Salinger. I gotta see if I could find it, but like, yeah, that was the one where I think twice in the movie somebody would be driving him somewhere because he's a
Yeah,
super
that
soldier, but he can't run across the country, and he'd be like, "I'm feeling sick. Could you please pull over?" And then he like runs out somewhere to like a field that just stays there, and eventually the driver's like, "Hey, dude, are you okay?" And then when the driver's over there, he sprints back to the car and
the
drives away like an
screenplay is by
asshole.
Stephen Tolkien. No, that can't be the same.
Yeah, Matt Salinger as Steve
Oh,
Rogers
so
slash
that's the
Captain America.
1991. There
Yeah, the
was a
90 one
70s.
was
There's a
seven.
70s.
Fair enough.
Couple
Yeah, the
movies.
'90s one was Matt Salinger, J.D. Salinger's kid
That's
as
so
Captain
funny.
America.
That's so funny. But yeah, so this was kind of like all this stuff was like cheesy TV stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what the first like theatrical like actual movie is? Live action Marvel movie.
Oh no,
You've seen it.
I probably have.
No, you've seen it. You just don't. You probably don't recognize it as a Marvel.
Oh wait
film.
a minute. Is this the Ang Lee Hulk movie?
No. Way before that. We're in the 80s still, buddy.
The '80s.
Yes.
'80s Marvel.
Yep.
Oof. Because when I picture '80s, I think Tim Burton Batman.
It's
80s
before
Marvel.
Tim Burton Batman.
Oh my god, I've seen this.
Yeah, we saw it together.
Wow. Okay. Oh, you're giving me trouble now. What was this?
Howard the Duck.
Oh, that is Marvel, isn't it? Not only was that Marvel, that was a George Lucas movie.
George Lucas produced movie. Yes. Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, as much of a meme as that movie is, the last act is kind of all right. But that movie, it's not worth getting to that point, though.
It's like the first couple minutes are just like, what is? These aren't even puns. Like,
I was just gonna mention, there's a lot of stretches for duck puns. Like somebody's throwing something, duck, and he's like, "I'm proud of it." You're like, oh, all right, he's a duck. I understand this. He's a talking duck.
So, this is the point where Tim Burton's Batman movie comes in like '89, and
that saved like the entire superhero reputation.
Yeah,
I know there's
so
the Dark Knight Returns in comic form, but movies though, Thank God for Tim Burton's Batman.
We wouldn't have superhero films without Batman '89.
Did you know that superheroes can be dark? Yes. Okay, well, to the people who don't read comics, no, I did not know that.
But during that same year, do you know of a direct-to-video Marvel live-action film that was made in 1980?
I get the feeling I'm not going to know about this one at all, so just go for it.
You will know it, but you won't be able to guess it. It's the Punisher film with Dolph Lundgren in it.
Okay, yeah, Dolph Lundgren he just shows up. He was He-Man. Why not?
He fights a bunch of ninjas.
He was Kindergarten Cop 2.
Yeah, he fights a bunch of ninjas in this.
Punisher,
it is not a good movie.
I actually thought it's not the 80s, but I thought you were going to throw me a curveball and talk about Men in Black.
Well, I'm going to get to that, yeah. So a lot of people don't realize this, but Men in Black started off as a Malibu comic.
And you could actually see, I mean, I know you just said Malibu, but you could actually see the Marvel logo in the opening credits of Men in Black.
And Marvel bought Malibu Comics like a couple years before the Men in Black movie was made.
Yeah, thank God, by the way, because the only comics I really know of from Malibu are those like atrocious Street Fighter comics that were so bad that Capcom actually asked them to stop making them.
There was a few decent ones. They had the Prime comics, and also like Nightman was before, you know. Yeah.
Which itself was a Flash Gordon reference.
Yeah. But yeah, this is that's what was that 1998 Men in Black.
I don't remember. I just remember the opening credit sequence is genius.
97.
Because you're hyper focused on this dragonfly. Like, what is its purpose? And it's just a regular fly. The credits conclude with it just hitting some guy's windshield, and that's the end of that.
Well, it's supposed to kind of parallel the end of the movie where, like, you know, everything's tiny, you know? Like,
no, that is super clever. Well, and the focus on bugs. But it's just funny because you're like, what is the significance? And then it's just, there is none. Like, it's just very funny as a quick visual gag.
Yeah. And so after that, Marvel just did not have good... like, Stan Lee was trying to get Marvel taken seriously for a very, very long time, and it did not happen.
Marvel was on the verge of bankruptcy, like, at least
a
once.
long time, throughout the entire 90s, basically. And that's really kind of odd, considering that, like, during the 90s was, like, the comic book boom.
I started getting into comics at that age. I liked Spider-Man.
Well, that's like when Jim Lee took over, like, X-Men. You know, that was huge. Like, Todd McFarlane took over Spider-Man. It was gigantic.
And this was the era of collectors. Like variant covers,
exactly.
And stuff like that.
That Spider-Man number one. That Spider-Man number one has a billion variants.
I was just gonna mention. I fell for that one, the Todd McFarlane Spider-Man one. I think I actually have all the variants for that one. It's like 5.
Yeah, they're
ridiculous.
Tons of them. Like Venom was big here. Like comics were really big in the 90s.
I got into Maximum Carnage.
Yeah, the comics were really big in the early 90s, but what had happened was Marvel made a whole bunch of other bad licensing decisions. Like they had a whole bunch of cartoons that didn't pan out well until, like, the X-Men, the animated series.
X-Men was a fucking banger.
Yeah.
Terrible ending, but the first few seasons, even up to 4, was
great.
Fantastic.
It started off great, yeah.
Yeah, it started off really interesting.
Spider-Man, the animated series was good, too, but before that, like, the Marvel
Spider-Man wasn't bad,
cartoons
but, like, X-Men was also interesting and daring in its start, because I think, you know how Harley Quinn is not from Batman comics? She's actually from the cartoon. Wasn't that the case with Jubilee for X-Men?
No, it was the case with Morph.
Okay, because, like, I remember Jubilee, like, we start by focusing on her, which was a bold decision. It was a lesser-known one.
She was a popular character in the comics at the time.
Okay.
But she was, like, the kid insert because she was the youngest member.
Yeah, I remember she was, like she called herself, like, a mall brat or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And she had, like, the radical... Not 3D glasses, but like the big, thick, like pink glasses.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they were basically like Bret Hart glasses.
Yeah, and I like how she walks around with these like it looks like just these kitchen yellow gloves, but then you realize because she has pyrotechnics out of her fucking hands.
Yeah, exactly. But there were some television films, other than the Hulk ones, that I don't think you're aware of before we get to X-Men.
Probably not.
Before we get to X-Men. So,
and depending how long this goes for, we might even need to save the movies we've actually heard of.
Yeah,
for the
because
next cast.
X-Men is pre-MCU, so we'll be talking about that. So,
yeah.
So, and that's really the start of things. But I
even
want
now,
to
X-Men's like an alternate
era.
thing.
I wanted to do the pre-X-Men era because like this is pretty interesting to see like the quality. Like the quality doesn't get good until X-Men, like
Blade 1 was pretty okay.
yeah, I was
Blade
gonna
2
say.
kicked ass.
So Blade is also before X-Men, I think, right? X-Men
I
is
think
2000, and Blade is 1998. Yeah, so but we have to get there first. So
Yeah, the TV movies.
there is a direct-to-video movie for Captain America that you're talking about, the J.D. Salinger version.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, Matt Salinger. Yeah,
Yeah.
Like, it's just all right.
And then the unreleased but leaked Roger Corman Fantastic
Yes.
Four movie in
Yes.
1994.
Which is a surprisingly earnest movie, even though it's obviously like a no-budget affair.
Comics nerds call that the best Fantastic Four movie, ironically.
Well, yeah, it sounds stupid, but like you know what the other 3 movies are.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like the
actually, except for Rise of the Silver Surfer, aren't all of the Fantastic Four movies made to like retain the license?
correct. Oh well, this original one definitely was.
The original one, yeah, that one famously is.
Yeah, so this Roger Corman one was famously unreleased because they made the movie to like retain rights. So they
like
did
Tony
that with the
Hawk
Wheel
5.
of Time recently. They
Wow.
made like a TV. They made like a TV pilot episode that they aired at like 2 a.m. on some weird
Jeez.
channel, just to retain the rights for the Wheel of Time. So there's like a single episode of that rolling around somewhere. There's an entire season of Black Bart, a TV series based off of Blazing Saddles that was never released
Wow.
because of that kind of thing, like to retain rights. So yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, you had Fantastic Four in 1994, and then even before Blade, there were a couple weird live-action Marvel movies, and I watched these when they were originally aired, and they were never heard of again after they aired.
I mentioned this for a second before, but there's the Red Brown Captain America movie where he just wears like a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah, that's the 70s one, I think.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
that's freaking great. Where his shield is like you could see when it's flying in the air. Like,
yeah.
It looks like it weighs nothing. It's like a little plastic shield shaped object that like just plunks off of enemies. I remember years ago, back when like Spoonie was making videos, he reviewed that movie where you see Red Brown throw the shield and it just like bonk, like bounces off the guy, but the guy goes like and like he got me. It just goes down super hard. Like, no, I don't think so.
So the first was on Fox, and this was interesting. This was a live action, basically like backdoor pilot kind of deal that didn't turn into a TV series because it was poorly received. It was Generation X, based off of like the comic book of the same name. It was just like the younger X-Men team. The New Mutants basically turned into Generation X later, and then New Mutants got its own thing later as well. Sure. But they were taught by the White Queen, Emma Frost, Sean Cassidy, the Banshee, and then there was no Professor Xavier for some reason.
And wasn't the White Queen like a villain at the time?
No, yeah, in the comics, but she was the good guy, and she was like the professor in this.
That makes me think of like X-Men. Oh, what was it called? Was it Evolution?
Evolution, yeah, is probably
the other cartoon. Yeah, where Mystique is the principal. Of the
yeah,
school,
somehow
like, what?
Mystique's a good guy. Like how?
Well, I mean, her alignment was kind of ambiguous for a point, but like it's still like really.
But Jubilee is the main character. You have Mondo and Skin. Skin is an interesting character because he basically stretches. And Buff and Refrax. Oh man, these are people that don't exist outside of this.
I was gonna say I've never heard of this.
Yeah. So yeah, that was bad. I think Malcolm McDowell was the bad guy in this.
That's excellent. Malcolm McDowell, man. Like,
I remember right.
You know him for a few prominent roles, but he shows up in a lot of stuff.
Matt Frewer was the bad guy. Oh, okay. Do you know who Matt Frewer was?
No.
He is the guy who played Max Headroom.
Wow, the guy who played Lawnmower Man 2.
Yeah, yeah. And then
That's
there was
bizarre.
another one like the next year. There was another television movie. It was Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring David Hasselhoff.
But wasn't he too busy being a lifeguard and a private eye and a Knight Rider?
He only had one eye, so I guess he could be with a private eye. But anyway,
The other eye was quite private. Actually, no, the one that he doesn't have is the private one.
But yeah, that is basically all of the and then we get to Blade, which is like that's when the quality goes up. You know, the Blade and Men in Black are like when Marvel movies are good, but like they aren't like serious Marvel movies yet because you don't recognize them as Marvel characters.
Yeah, Marvel.
Blade is more of a Marvel character than Men in Black ever were.
Yep. Men in Black straight up kicked ass, partly because it was a comedy. Blade has lots of parts that are like awesome to this day,
Except
and
for the
also
end.
some parts that have I was gonna mention like that really didn't age well, like the awful CG with Frost. Some of that stuff looks pretty awkward.
That blood monster looked awful back then.
Yes, and the Mortal Kombat Annihilation skeletons that climb out of the vampires.
It's also the world's introduction to bullet time. Bullet time was first done in Blade, not in the Matrix.
And the intro scene with the blood rave was like
that was cool.
Exceedingly 90s, but it's to this day a brilliant concept.
It's iconic.
Like a vampire's party, that's a pretty good way for them to do it.
Yeah, like the shower, the fire showers open up and blood
it's
comes
blood.
Out.
That's like awesome. What a clever idea.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we got all of the touchstones of pre-live action Marvel. We didn't do a lot of animation here.
We could obviously pursue this further in a future episode.
But we got pre-X-Men all under our belt, so that's good.
Yeah,
so
and one other thing, this is before we move on to listener comments.
Oh yeah,
I do want to point out that shortly after we recorded Reactive Consciousness, we had seen that while we were recording it, SNK announced that Samurai Showdown, the new one, is coming to Steam on June 14th. So, PC Samurai Showdown, that's gonna be kick-ass.
Yeah, I hope they have good online matchmaking. But that'll be a big deal because that game is awesome. It deserves it.
All right, so now we can get to user feedback. Living Corpse left several comments, so I'm going to read a couple. So this is talking about like what we had alluded to in Reactive Consciousness with like viewers, or not viewers, reviewers. Video game reviewers might be inclined to give games higher scores than they deserve so they can keep getting free review copies of games. So Living Corpse said, if I was in his shoes about a game company threatening to not give free games for giving their crummy game a bad review, I'd respond with, good, you made bad games. Stop sending me trash.
That's a good
Buzzing.
point.
And then another comment is, I should have said this in the Oscar episode. I think a lot of professional movie critics are trolls. Like, I get it. They're stuck watching movies that aren't their thing because it's their job. But you're seriously not going to say, not one horror film or giant monster movie has ever had a good plot or interesting characters. Not one. Yeah, because you look at the posters and you're like, oh, it's monkey fighting lizard. But, like, they have plots. Some of them better than others.
Yeah, you know what it is? It's like a pedigree.
It's not in vogue. Yeah.
The like cinema, like film critics are in a very small club of people, and they all like are vying for the top spot or recognition, and like nobody else is allowed to play in their sandbox. So a lot going along with that is the snooty like art house stuff is only what gets to go into their vocabulary. Roger Ebert, though, was one of the very first people to like give B movies a chance, and a lot of times he would say he liked a lot of like like certain types of B movies because he's like the characters are interesting or like he's
Yeah,
really
well,
the father of modern film criticism, if
yeah,
you
yeah,
ask
like
me.
Red Letter Media showed a clip of Siskel and Ebert praising like the first Critters movie.
Yeah, I
It's like
mean, uh,
nobody would give that movie the time of day.
yeah, I think Richard Roper, who took over for Gene Siskel after he passed away, said he loved the Jackass movie, like the first Jackass movie. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
like,
not supposed to be this high art. Although
yeah,
speaking of high art, by the way, I had seen this picture spread around online. Whether it's true or not, it still makes a good point. Where apparently, like someone in college, their professor noticed they had like a Terry Pratchett book, and they were like poo pooing it as like young adult
lowbrow.
fiction or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, lowbrow, even though it actually covers legitimately good themes and everything like
Oh, they're
that.
hilarious too.
And like, well, not to mention the counter argument is, well, what's highbrow? Shakespeare, because
Yeah.
he wasn't. Like Romeo and Juliet opens with puns and sex jokes. That's literally the first scene of the play.
Well, it's
Because
funny.
everybody could go see plays. You know, this is supposed to appeal to the largest possible audience.
Like Bill Maher was making fun of like comic books and movies or in video games as lowbrow humor, and like
Yeah,
somebody
you
came.
you could do that joke in the '80s, but you've had decades to like see how far your head is up your ass by this point.
Somebody came back and said like even like at the time Shakespeare was popular entertainment for the masses. It was for
That's what
the
I'm saying.
street
Yeah.
people. It
Yeah,
was
well, like I said, puns and sex jokes in Romeo and Juliet, the greatest love story of all time, which, by the way, isn't even a fucking love story.
and somebody clapped back at him and said, "Hey, you know, Shakespeare and novels were considered trash when they came out. Like they were
Yeah.
considered like Dickens and stuff like that was lowbrow entertainment at the time, and
Yep.
now it's considered like the pinnacle of like Victorian novels. So I mean, like
Yeah.
that stuff
We
is
consider it high art because Shakespeare rhymes.
yeah, exactly. High art back then was paintings and poetry.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
it. So and then Bill Maher just didn't understand what they were
Yeah, and not
talking
to
about.
mention, you have stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which both of those movies are goofy,
Brilliant.
like, just like stupid humor, but they have these intense themes of like parental and child conflict and
Yeah,
interpersonal issues and stuff like that. It's not
absolutely.
just like LOL laser guns go pew pew. Like they're real movies, whatever that means.
And I mean, like there are all kinds of different movies too. I mean, like there's they fill different voids. I mean,
Well,
sometimes you
that's the
just
thing.
want the
Don't
roller coaster
I
ride.
was gonna say, don't tell me you've legitimately never ever laughed at a stupid joke in a movie or a TV show ever.
Yeah.
Like The Simpsons. The Simpsons is like,
Marx Brothers was vaudeville for God's sakes.
yeah, yeah, literally. And The Simpsons was like trashy humor, like the style. It was very counterculture at the time, and now because it's been around so long, we're like, oh, it must be good. It's this brilliant sitcom that has stood the test of time, etc., etc.
Yeah, it was
Like
vulgar at
Home.
the time. It was vulgar, like when it came
Well,
out.
even if you go
Yeah,
back to it today, it's considerably more vulgar then than it is now. They had no problem showing blood or like they still do this, but like Homer's like a functioning alcoholic of a father. Like this is when all the other
and
shows that
he
were like
abused
it,
Bart like in
they
front
would
of you.
throttle him like as
Yeah,
a joke. Yeah, like this is when other TV shows like that were full of wholesome like Leave It to Beaver families. I know Leave It to
exactly.
Beaver is like decades older.
No,
That's
but you're talking about like
unfair.
Full House at the time, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was very saccharine. And The Simpsons would have Homer like getting into a fucking brawl with somebody.
yeah.
And
This was
like
before Seinfeld like revolutionized sitcoms. So
yeah,
like,
like this was like what? Like South Park was the next level of that. You could swear on cartoons? Really? Like and even The Simpsons skirted that. But in any case, yeah, so Living Corpse continues to say, yeah, you're saying that not one horror film or giant monster movie's ever had a good plot or just characters.
it's really the
Give me
Oscars. It's really the Oscars that
Yeah,
are the
they're
problem.
they're they're a giant masturbation session. But it says, "Give me a damn break. There are tons of them. They can't all be treasures." But saying they're all trash is doing them a disservice. I don't think these genres would have lasted if none of them had good characters or stories.
Preaching to the
Yes, a lot of
choir.
them are trash, but just because you don't like them doesn't mean that they're all trash. I don't like musicals. Doesn't mean they're bad. It's just not my thing. Yeah, that's what I say
Yeah.
about like football video games. I get it's their job. the reviewers, but maybe tell their boss they can't give a fair review, and if they are their own boss, then go see something else. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of stuff like that. Yeah, like I say that I don't like musicals, but there are some that I quite enjoy.
Oh, you love certain ones.
Yeah, like it's funny to bring up, but like Seven Brides for
Yeah,
Seven
I was just gonna
Brothers,
say.
like,
Yeah.
because my mom watched that back in the day. It's like, this is what Lotus Prince gets enjoyment out of, but like, it's surprisingly
You
good.
like The Producers and Young Frankenstein?
Well, The Producers was not a musical until it was.
Yeah.
Same goes for The Young Frankenstein. Neither of those was musical. But then Young Frankenstein got a musical play.
Didn't you see Wicked on Broadway as well?
No, I read the book. And
Oh, okay.
holy fuck, that was not a musical. But the play is. But yeah, the Producers became an actual musical about making a musical play, but the OG movie is not a musical.
Yeah.
But Mel Brooks always does throw like at least one song into his movies, even Spaceballs, although it's not diegetic, the characters aren't singing it, but it's there. And then Dracologist says Flashback and Prince of Persia are called genre-wise step platformer. I hadn't heard that term,
Yeah, I hadn't
but,
heard it.
Yeah. I guess it kind of makes sense because
Yeah,
you're not
because
leaping
you're running on the
vertically
walls.
terribly often unless you could climb something.
Yeah.
Now, our question, I am pleased to say we have not one but two questions, so we have one for next week. But for this week, Connor asks, what are your favorite inventories in games? Personally, I love any sort of Tetris-style inventory where you have limited space, but you could physically move and rotate items to optimize them, like the original Deus Ex. And my absolute favorite version of this is the Resident Evil 4 inventory. I love how everything is physically represented, as how it appears in-game, inside of an actual attaché case. I spent ages during my playthrough frequently arranging it so ammo types, herb types, etc. are grouped together. Yeah, that is satisfying. And everything looked neat and tidy. Sticking with Resident Evil, I also love how in some of the older games you could view items in 3D. Yeah, I forgot if 3 brought that back, but it was definitely a gimmick in 1.
Sure.
2 did not do that. I'm kind of disappointed that every modern Resident Evil game since 7 has gone with a more monochrome, minimalist, icon-based look to their inventories. Yeah, I haven't seen that with those because I haven't
6
played them. But
has the worst inventory. It's
well, 6 is the worst in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Just like, here's your inventory screen, go. Honorable mention also goes to Dead Space. The actual inventory wasn't anything special, but how they incorporated it into the UI in the game worlds. Yeah, like your character is like, bloop, what's my inventory? Like a little hollow projector like Horizon Zero Dawn. Yeah, that's clever and looked awesome. So yeah, your favorite inventories. Going with what Connor was saying, you can't. I don't believe you could rotate, but System Shock 2 is very similar. In that regard. That's probably the first example I could think of where I had to arrange my inventory where like, oh, I can't hold this. Oh wait, I can if I move this out of the way. And that's from 1999, I think. So. Yeah, I was into Deus Ex and Resident Evil 4 later. System Shock 2 wasn't as sophisticated, but it had that principle. I also get a kick, by the way, out of games where you could cheat with inventory in some cases. Like, you could fill up your entire inventory, but oh wait, if you equip this thing, you could carry it and everything in your inventory. Like, it's just only a problem if you try putting it away. You have to swap out with something. But I like that. Like Yakuza did something similar. I do not like old Yakuza's inventory. But they had 9 items and 3 weapon slots. But if you currently have a weapon equipped, then you could fill your 3 weapon slots and carry 4 weapons. It's like kind of like that.
Yeah. So if I had to pick one, I like. I guess this is kind of like I was gonna say Resident Evil 4 is the top notch one.
It's very good.
So much fun.
And you could even buy bigger cases. You could expand your inventory.
If I had to choose one, for like UI purposes, I would say Doom 2016's. Like the way that you pick your weapons and like switch them is always been a lot of fun to me. I really like that.
The weapon types. I'm trying to think of other stuff I've seen relatively recently.
I tend to like it when your character has all of their items on them.
Physically, like in their pockets or whatever, you could see it. Yeah, that's always fun.
I'm gonna bring back an OG favorite of mine that I mention from time to time, Ghost Hunter. That character,
PS2.
He has all of for the PS2. That character, it's such an underrated game. that guy has all of his tools on him, like physically.
Yeah. That's always
That's really
fun to
cool.
see, where you're like walking around with like rope hanging over your shoulder or whatever it is that you found that's a plot item.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, there's actual weight to it, and I don't know. I really like the Link to the Past, just like opening up that and seeing all those
Yeah.
classic items right there.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Yeah, just scrolls down. And what's also kind of nice about that is that if you, no, yeah, no, this still works. Like if you get a better armor, or if you upgrade your boomerang, like they just replace it.
yeah.
So it's just the red boomerang now. It's just the blue armor now. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
what it is.
exactly.
You don't have this redundant armor that you're never gonna wear again anyway. So we're just not gonna keep it around. I can't even think of games that do this off the top of my head, but I like games that also can auto arrange, or like group by type, by size, or whatever it is. So you're just like ka-chong,
I mean,
instant sorting.
you also have the classic like first person shooter arrangement where you just get like more and more powerful like numbers on your list. Um,
Sure.
like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess that's more of, yeah. I guess it kind of counts as inventory.
Sure.
Um, what else is there? Because I'm trying to think of things that are like different, but it's kind of hard to do because I
Well,
am used to the somewhat monochrome
how about
in-game
like a
UI.
point and click game that has a pretty innovative
Well,
inventory.
well, all right. This isn't necessarily. Well, I guess it kind of is. Like King's Quest 5 and 6, where you could still touch, look, talk to your inventory objects, so you might get unique dialogue. That's one thing that modern point and clicks don't have, because a lot of that stuff is a waste of time. It's just like, let me click on the thing that actually does something when I click on it. But at the same time, you lose the funny flavor text you might get, like "Why would you try to eat that?" or things like
Yeah.
that. So that wasn't innovative in terms of what they did with the inventory system. But I like that your inventory could be either successfully or like unsuccessfully interacted with. Like in King's Quest 6, you could get a rotten tomato, and it's a tomato who's a jerk, and you could talk to him, and he says annoying things to you. It's just like, hey, like you wouldn't do that in the if they made a new King's Quest game. You would either succeed or fail at using it where you're supposed to use it.
So, as far as bad inventories go, I have to say that one of the worst used to be Monster Hunter before they like got good at it.
Oh,
Like it, I hate limited inventory where you have to have certain items and like they take up like half of your
oh
inventory.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's much better when games have plot inventory,
hmm
which is its own separate menu that you can never add to manually, because it's just like the
Well,
plot says you have this or not.
there are certain items that you basically need to take on every mission, like your shovel or whatever, your
Yeah,
spit,
yeah,
and like
yeah.
it's like why didn't they make that as a default? Like this isn't part of
Yeah, if you
like
have
your
to have a
inventory.
permanent X number of boxes taken away, then just have fewer boxes and have the thing permanently equipped or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous.
That seems very old school, crunchy, like PC kind of gaming.
Yeah, they've since like fixed that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
and that inventory is quite nice now, and you can sort that and make it look all nice and pretty.
It
It's quite
used to be
satisfying.
a nightmare. It used to be a nightmare,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah. I'm trying to think of other stuff, because like, yeah, I do like that 3D look at object inventory stuff where it actually is useful to you. Like in Resident Evil, you open the books or things like that. Like it's fun while it lasts, even though it might just be flavor in a lot of games. But it's kind of cool when you see that it actually does something. Or even things where you can combine items with each other in the inventory. That's also kind of satisfying. One thing I'll say I'm not much of a fan of is when you're allowed to keep carrying things and it just takes forever to scroll.
Oh
Like like
yeah,
in like in Dark Souls, you can get a storage box,
Elder Scrolls is
but
famous for that. Yeah.
yeah, like in Dark Souls, either in the storage box or on you, you could carry just 1,000 swords and armor, and like, where's the thing I want? Oh god. At least in Dark Souls, I think 2 and definitely 3, there are different compartments within your storage box that's like, this is torso armor only, this is leg armor only, this is swords only, this is axes only. So like, at least your scrolling is not nearly as daunting as it otherwise could be.
Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, any more you could think of?
I'm trying, but I don't really think I have a crazy other example
I
of
do have a
inventory.
shout out as like an honorable mention because of its unique nature.
Mm-hmm.
But your inventory in Tomba is actually whatever's in your stomach at the time.
Oh, that's funny. A clever way of doing it. You just like
Yes.
barf it up.
So one of the inventory items is like a live like chick, like baby chick, and you need to like bring it back like to its owner, and like he's just like, oh, okay, do you have it? And then he just like regurgitates it, and he's just like,
Thanks.
you've been storing it in your stomach, and like Tomba doesn't talk, he just like gesticulates, so he's just like, ugh.
Yeah, it's like Mario RPG. You just like imagine what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, now that you mention it,
No, he's a caveman, so he doesn't speak.
well, yeah, but like even then, Mario, you have to like get at what he's saying.
Yeah.
Because like he talks, but the player can understand him. One other thing I'll say is clever in somewhat of a similar regard is, and it's a point and click, is in Discworld, you have like a multi-legged luggage bag that just follows you wherever you go. So it's just this living creature that holds all your stuff.
Yeah, I love that idea. Read that first Discworld book. That's a treat. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think we could probably call it a day with that. What do you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think we're pretty good.
Okay. Well, that is the show for this week. We want to thank all of our fans who contributed questions. Thank you for doing that, by the way. We desperately needed them, and we need more in the backlog. Please.
Yep, we have one more.
Please keep us supplied with awesome topics by submitting questions of your own via the YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Also, keep those comments going. You guys are always good with that. While there, please give us thumbs ups, likes, and 5-star ratings on iTunes. Helps promote and spread awareness of the show, and any bit of encouragement helps keep the show going. You can also catch us on Tuesday for our sister podcast, Corrective Consciousness, the in-depth look at this week in our lives. Finally, you can friend me as vysethebold on pretty much everything. Just make sure you send me a message to let me know who you are.
And you could follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, if you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting exclusive, oh my god, I'm really
all right,
tired.
Redo the show. Let's do that.
Redo the entire show. You're the one who says it. If you're,
we won't talk about Howard the Duck nearly as much.
More Howard the Duck, more duck in the bathtub. That we're like, why are we filming this? Why'd you make that?
Play duck.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have
condoms.
continued to have forgotten about that.
Duck condoms
This
is
sucks.
the worst part. Yeah.
Oh my god. Imagine my therapist's bill when I go over there. In any case, you can follow me.
That's one of the better ones. That's the problem with that.
Yeah, which I lampoon because it's pathetic. And it's still one of the better ones. In any case, take two. You can follow me on my YouTube channel, Lotus Prince. You can hit me up on Twitter at Lotus Prince. And finally, here's the tough part now. If you are interested in seeing my videos early, getting in on exclusive live streams, nailed it, selecting upcoming games for me to Let's Play, or getting in conversations with me and other patrons on Discord, then perhaps consider swinging by my Patreon account, which can be found at patreon.com/LotusPrince.
All right, lovely. We will catch everyone on Tuesday then.
Until next time, everyone.
Bye-bye.